Okay, resist. So Andrea Kroenig, who I don't believe could be here today, she just sent a quick statement. Obviously, I think if anyone has taken part in the Women's March, they recognize this type of photo and Wonder Woman cape and the pussy hats and all that kind of stuff. Resist is based on a photo I took during the 2018 New York City Women's Protest March and has gotten some good feedback from local shows. Yeah, of course, I think so many people can relate to this. This actually was the first protest I'd ever taken my daughters to. And I think they didn't know what to make of it. And I think I picked a good one because it was probably one of the most peaceful, conducive, enveloping kind of protests that I've ever seen. It was a fantastic experience. So it's great to see that other people obviously were impacted by this and shared it with their daughters, which I loved. I thought that was great. Okay, this one is Harriet Cortez, Was It Ever Enough? Found Objects. I don't think Harriet is here. But yeah, it was just, again, another assemblage piece and just all these different elements that I think are really interesting that give this kind of figurative idea of it's almost a wedding dress. It's almost violent. It's almost traditional with the silver. Just thought it was a really interesting juxtaposition of all these different materials that were just beautiful to look at together. So I loved that too. Let's see. This one, Katie Simmons, Jungland's Negra, black ballpoint pen, walnut ink, and cardboard. I don't think Katie is here. Oops, hold on a second. There we go. But yeah, I loved this too. Walnut ink, I got really into walnut ink about a year ago and started experimenting with that. And it's just a really beautiful kind of umber-like material. I love all the visuals in this and that it's done on cardboard and it's just really beautifully done and rich. It's just a beautiful piece with some complex narrative and really skillfully done. So I loved that. Thought that was great. Okay, this one, Lena Mizarro's Heritage. And she's in Spain, so I don't believe she's here right now, but she did send a little statement for me to read. Sooner or later, we'll all have to position ourselves in front of our family and cultural heritage. In this work, the legacy is represented by a large coat made of odds and ends, a coat that passes through all eras, which carries the history of several generations. After having refused for a long time, I decided to carry my heritage coat, raise the collar, push the arms, accept. On the road, however, we realize that there is not only a suitcase to carry, but that we also drag the suitcases of others, people who did not have the opportunity and the chance to fulfill their life as they wished, who place all their hope in us to remember that life. Their knowledge, their experiences were not in vain and do not disappear. The acceptance and awareness also make it possible to understand, open, and release certain suitcases. And it's really, when you have time, definitely zoom in there. There's so many beautiful little intricacies and detail. And again, textile art, here it is again. Don't know what that person was thinking. I think it's hugely popular and gorgeous and obviously very representative of craft, which used to be considered not an incredible art and women did it. And now it's incredible and vibrant and having an incredible moment and decade. And I think it's going to keep going. Let's see here. Next piece. This, Charuzhan, I think I'm pronouncing that, Woven Memories, which is a relief printmaking in ink. Again, just a beautiful little moment. I don't think that artist is here. A little beautifully done, yes, intricate, skilled, and yet just this little hidden moment that I think a lot of us can relate to, either as a sister, as a mother, as a daughter, this very safe, kind of tender moment that a lot of people can relate to. And I just thought that was a beautiful piece. Okay. Ruby Lindner. Oh, she's here. Fantastic. One Night at the Lido de Paris, oil and marker on canvas. I'd like to hear about this night. I wasn't there. This looked like it was a jam. What's happening?
First off, shout out to Deborah. You're not the only person who does abstracts. I also started as a representational painter, and I have been doing abstract work now. It actually is coincidental, but for 10 years. Basically, I started going towards abstract when my mom passed. I don't know what that connection is between those, but that's what happened. It's interesting to me, Ellen, that you brought up that book at the beginning, The Ninth Street Women. Obviously, the abstract expressionist painters of the mid 20th century are a huge influence on my work. I'm absolutely in love with all of them. But that book particularly, when I read it, I am a big fan of Grace Harding, and I don't think she's gotten nearly the recognition that she should have. Her abstract work crosses between abstract and representational. It's very interesting. And about 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to go to London, and there was a huge abstract show there of women's art, abstract women painters, and from all over the world. It wasn't just the American genre, but there were also abstract painters from Europe, from South America, from the Middle East, and all women painters. And what I loved about it was that I think the women abstract painters and the women abstract art that I'm most familiar, to me, has a sensuality that is very specific to women, as opposed to what we think of as the movement painters or the motion painters of the abstract movement, whether that's a Pollock or a de Kooning. There's a lot more force, and it seems to me that the women abstract painters, for the most part, they bring in the motion and the movement, but they also bring in great passion, and a lot of it has to do with their work, their use of art colors, as well as techniques. To get back to this painting specifically, this is a very large painting. I've started working because I have in my studio a huge wall that actually the wall is as colorful as any of my canvases now because paint is flying everywhere. But I'm able to staple large canvases there to work on. So this is a pretty big piece. When I was painting, this is going to sound a little crazy perhaps, but my family is from Europe, is German. I'm a German heritage. I'm the only American in the family. And I grew up listening to the music of Charles Aznavour and Edith Piaf and a lot of the French chanteurs. And as a young person, I was able to go with my family to France quite a bit, as well as visiting family in Germany. And what I love about the idea of the Lido, when I was painting this painting, I was listening to Charles Aznavour for about a 2-week period. I was just completely consumed. What I love about the Lido, unlike the Moulin Rouge, the Lido started as a performance dance hall. The dance halls that we think of when we think of Las Vegas shows, they trace their roots to this. The original founders of the Vegas casinos, they went to the Lido and they spoke with the people who opened the Lido in the 50s and brought the Lido shows over to Vegas. And the idea was that these women who were dancing there, they were not like in Moulin Rouge originally. These were not escorts. These were women who were dancing. They were the show, and they were expressing joy. And the shows were really productions already at that point. They had a theme. They had a story they were telling. It wasn't just women getting up and doing a can. They had a huge production with these amazing costumes, lots of color, lots of energy. And that's when I think about my personal painting and how I approach it, that's what I bring to my art. It's about motion and movement. And this piece particularly when I finished it, I just kept thinking, I can see that stage with these women with their amazing costumes and their beautiful feather headdresses and these fabulous costumes they're wearing, dancing and having a wonderful time. The bubbly's flowing. That was what I wanted to bring to this. It doesn't have any political statement. It's just about the joy of the freedom of being out there and being able to express ourselves. And I think sometimes we get a little bit heavy on wanting to bring meaning to things. And lately I've really had a hard time not getting too heavy with the news and what's going on in the country. So this for me is a really nice alternative, if you will. I have to look at this and say, when I look at this painting, I can feel good about things.
Yes.
So.
and it should be part of our representation. And it's, again, like I said before, isn't this really the goal, to have that kind of joy and exuberance and not have all this weight? And I thought it was a really beautiful piece. And I also am a sucker for the wives of the abstract expressionists.
Oh, they're amazing.
They call them the wives. But yeah, one thing I'm doing next year, okay, so you speak French, so you're probably going to pronounce this better, but I do know there's a philanthropist named Christian Levitt, who just opened a museum in the south of France. He has one of the most amazing collections of abstract expressionists, women abstract expressionists. And you can find a video of him on YouTube, but he just opened it like 2 weeks ago in the south of France, where he basically put this museum together specifically of not only the abstract expressionist women, but current women. And it's like one of the first museums that's dedicated to women. I can't wait to go. I cannot wait
Do you know where it is in the south of France?
I'd have to look it up, but I want to say it's probably in part of the Femme Mogin. I'm terrible at French. I'm terrible at most languages, but French, ugh. But I'm sure you could look it up. But
I would suggest if you're going next year to south of France, go to the Met collection, which is just outside of Nice. And it was the collection, I just saw it this year. It was amazing. And it's abstract paintings. But this couple started this based on what Guggenheim had done originally. And so it was the first private organization that houses this. And they were good friends with Miro and with Picasso. And so they have a lot of original works that were done just for this collection. It's definitely worth a stop.
nice. I'm gonna do that. It's so funny. I'll be going to the south of France. But no, that's where you put the museum. What can I do? I gotta go. But this is a great piece, and it's close to my heart because I do love the idea of the exuberance of it and all of that. So thank you. It's beautiful. I'm sorry I'm running so late, you guys. I'm just getting so into this. I can't help myself. Sarah Reiser, famous We Are soft sculpture. I don't think she's here.
That's me.
You're
Sorry.
here. Yay.
I'm here.
So this
Hi.
piece, tell me about the little Sunday breasts are just like I want them. Like I'm like, this is so playful and luscious. I just wanted to see more of this.
So I guess I started making dolls around 2016. A couple years before that, I had like a midlife health crisis. Changed everything, left my career, whatever. Was like, I'm gonna become an artist. So dumb. So I went to SAIC as like a 35-year-old. And when I was getting towards the end, because I wanted to do another bachelor's degree, because I wanted to learn all of the things, I wasn't trying to hone a practice I didn't have. I got towards the end, and I don't know if anyone knows the School of the Art Institute, but they make a big deal about the end of the year shows. They're like launching you into infinity. And it starts about a year before. And so when I was sitting with my advisor and I said, oh, I thought of this thing and I want to make this doll. And I can't even describe the expression, was just like horror times 1,000. And he said, sweetie, this is not a trade school. And I was just thinking of something as soft sculpture to convey the meaning that I wanted, but then the implication that I had spent all of this money that to this day I still haven't been able to pay back, that someone would think that something that had functional arms and legs was beneath them. Then I was like, oh, I'm gonna make all of the dolls. So I did.
Yeah.
For that show. And then even though my practice is divided between, I'll do a couple of these large scale, because she's over 2 feet tall, like a couple of these large scale ones every year. My practice is divided between this, and then I do a lot of political stuff. Right now I'm really busy. I live right outside of Chicago, and with the DNC coming, I'm in about 4 or 5 things that have nothing to do with they're all a lot more forward, but I can't get away from the dolls. I love them. This one in particular, the one thing that is frustrating is I haven't figured out a good way with 3-dimensional work to show the whole package. So the other side of this flag says not just your sisters, but sisters with a C, like sisters. I haven't figured out a way to like seamlessly get that in there. After all of this time of doing soft sculpture, I still don't know the best way to photograph it. But so yeah, Themis is the Greek Titan that we think like Lady Justice filtered down. That's what she is. There's just been something really frustrating about women supporting and voting against their own interests, and then how that filters down to other groups. Because I do think that there is a part of being a white woman where we think so little of history. Oh, we've always had the vote, or but we haven't, and it's work, and I think we take too much for granted. And that's where this came from.
Mhm. And I love that it's a doll. I'd actually studied creating dolls years ago with a woman named Joellen Trilling, who was fantastic. And so she switched to painting, which broke my heart. And then after that, did study puppetry for a while. So this to me is, I love this. I've done whole theatrical shows where I've designed the puppets, and I've spent several summers teaching young girls to make, we call it faux taxidermy, but it's really like they're making taxidermy with just other stuff. And when you have young girls do that, they're just so creative and they love this. I know it is hard to show, especially in a 2D version, when you have something that is full 3D that you need to walk around and see. But this kind of work is so enticing, and that's also why it needs to be shown in more places, more than online. It needs to be exhibited, walked around, all that kind of stuff. And to me, this is an incredible art form. Who knows, maybe this will follow in more of the mainstream now that there is so much mainstream with textiles and that kind of stuff. And I have seen some interesting shows in New York, in West Chelsea, that have had some interesting pieces like this that are masks or dolls on a massive scale. So it's out there. People are looking for this. But
I will say all this time after finishing school, because it was a moment where everyone was saying like, oh, fiber's so hot right now, it's fine. That a lot of shows that I have been involved in or applied for were people that were doing much more 2D textiles, weavings, things like that. That then I was like, I'm gonna submit.
Yes.
It's fiber. And I, not just to be a brat, I think that's like a Gen X byproduct, but the things that I have gotten in, it has not single-handedly, but also then other people were like, oh, I was making this thing and it wasn't just flat. That is expanding the narrative in an interesting way. I don't know how long it's going to last, but
yeah, definitely email me. I'm going to send you pictures of the show that I was in New York maybe a year and a half ago or something like that. It's going to blow you away. It'll be inspiring for this kind of work.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So
and thank you for putting this all together.
Of course. No, thank you for
Thanks.
submitting. I can't do without the work.